Before Maurice Clemmons became the man who shocked an entire nation, his story started in a place most people never even think about, Marianna, Arkansas, a town shaped by poverty, violence, and that constant feeling that the odds were already stacked against you. Out of that world came a teenager slipping deeper into crime, a prisoner clawing for a second chance, and a man whose mind was slowly coming apart in ways everyone around him could see. And then in 2009, all of that pressure finally erupted into a morning of unthinkable violence. Now, here's the thing about Marianna, Arkansas. This little town is where the whole Clemens story really begins, and it carries that heavy mix of struggle, history, and straight-up survival that shaped generations of folks who came out of it. In a place like this, poverty isn't just some statistic on a chart. It's the air people breathe every day. Jobs are scarce, hope feels rationed, and the whole community moves like it's carrying a weight on its shoulders. Mariana sits in one of the poorest counties in one of the poorest states. Unemployment hovering around 30%. Families getting by on barely $24,000 a year. Money so tight it practically squeaks. And the crazy part, that's less than half of what the average American family makes. When people call the town landlocked, they're not joking. No freeway, no Mississippi River access, even the old railroad, which used to bring life through the town, stopped stopping. Driving through, you see that contrast everywhere. Cotton fields throwing white fuzz into the air like slow motion snow, while homes switch from sturdy brick houses to crooked wooden shacks and trailers sitting on cinder blocks. There are empty homes too, whole places just left behind. One of them belonged to a Clemens relative, but now the only tenants are wildcats lounging like they pay rent. The town square dominated by a statue of Robert E. Lee, because yes, the whole county is named after him. And from that square, thin little roads stretch out in every direction, some paved, some dirt, all of them leading into stories of folks trying to make something out of very little. Maurice Clemmons entered this world right in the middle of all that, February 1972, and the timing could not have been rougher. The year before he was born, Mariana went through this massive, high-tension showdown. Black residents, tired of being shut out and disrespected, organized a boycott against all the white-owned businesses. That boycott hit hard, and the response was even harder. Riots, fires, gunshots. Things got so wild the county judge almost ran over 2 black protesters, then pulled a gun on them when they tried to hold him accountable. That violence didn't just shake the town, it scared the jobs right out of it. The Coca-Cola bottling plant closed. The factory where Maurice's father, Joe Clemens, worked making car seat frames, gone too. With no money and no path forward, Joe did what a lot of people in struggle do. He packed up and headed west for a better shot in Washington. Maurice's mother, Dorothy May, was one of Joe's 20 siblings. 20, and she was raising 6 kids on her own, working 2 jobs, doing whatever it took to keep her family afloat. She eventually moved the kids to Little Rock, hoping for better opportunities than Mariana could ever offer. But for Maurice, the road took a sharp turn. At 16, he spiraled into a 7-month crime streak, robbing a woman in a hotel parking lot, breaking into a state trooper's home, getting expelled for bringing a gun to school. He later wrote from prison that he was just trying to fit in, trying not to be the outcast kid drifting between worlds. He even boiled his whole youth down to one line, a 16-year-old misguided fool whose own life he was unable to rule. At just 17 years old, Clemens found himself staring down a 108-year prison sentence. To his family, that wasn't justice, it was overkill. They felt like the kind of time he got was meant for people who committed the worst crimes imaginable, not for a teenager who was wild, reckless, and making terrible choices, but not taking lives. Inside prison, he didn't exactly calm down at first. He kept running into trouble: battery, sexual assault accusations, theft, drugs, weapons, pretty much everything you could think of. But according to Pulaski County prosecuting attorney Larry Jegley, most of that chaos happened early on. Over time, they eventually got him under control. Even Jegley said Clemens started to get it after a while. After 11 years behind bars, Clemens made a move that would change the course of his life. He filed for clemency with Governor Mike Huckabee. In his petition, he didn't sugarcoat anything. He admitted there was no excuse for what he'd done. He talked about coming from a loving Christian family and knowing he had embarrassed them. He spoke about his mother passing away while he was locked up, saying he didn't get the chance to be by her side or make her proud before she died. He insisted he was done living wrong and promised he would no longer do evil. Prosecutors opposed his release twice, but a local judge, Marion Humphrey, thought the sentence was way too long for a teenager. In May 2000, Huckabee agreed and granted clemency, pointing directly to how young Clemens had been when he committed his early crimes. Once out, Clemens headed to Seattle for a short time before landing in trouble again. In 2001, he stormed into a house in Camden, Arkansas with a gun and robbed the people inside of $10,000 they had sitting in a Walmart bag. That stunt sent him right back to prison for 3 more years. He was released again in 2004. This time, Clemens wanted to leave Arkansas altogether and return to Washington, but Washington wouldn't take him unless he had a sponsor. That sponsor ended up being his half-brother, Ricky Hinton, who was a felon himself. Still, Washington approved the transfer. In fact, Arkansas only agreed to release Clemens under the condition that he go to Washington, where they believed he had support and a job lined up. Finding work as a felon with no high school diploma is tough, but in spring 2004, he actually caught a break. He was hired as a bounty hunter by Metro Bail Bonds in Tacoma. The owner, Dave Regan, said he saw Clemens as a guy who had spent most of his life in prison, but didn't seem like a bad person at heart. That gig didn't last long, though. Regan let him go after about a month because Clemens was just too aggressive for the job. At that point, Clemens settled into an apartment in Pioneer Square, living with Hinton and a white bulldog puppy. And then, in June 2004, his personal life took a turn. He married his girlfriend, Nicole Smith, a manicurist he had met in a Seattle nightclub 3 years earlier. Nicole had 2 kids, a 12-year-old boy and a 4-year-old girl. She was hustling to survive, working hard, but struggling financially. That same year, she declared bankruptcy for the second time. Her income was barely over $1,000 a month. Her car had been repossessed, and she owed more than $59,000. Her checking account balance was literally zero. Nicole told Maurice she knew what it meant to start from nothing, to lose everything, twice. And Maurice hit back with his version of reassurance. As long as you got Maurice, you got a gold mine. Meanwhile, he was trying to build something real. He told his community corrections officer, Robert Martin, that he was hustling from job to job, plumbing, pulling seats out of buses, recycling metal. But eventually, he started piecing together a more stable life. He bought a van and began cleaning moss off roofs and clearing gutters. Then he got a steady job at a rail supply company called Nortrack, where his bosses said he was punctual and reliable. He was even dreaming about buying a house. He left Nortrack after about a year and made a big move. He officially started his own company, Sea Wash Pressure Washing and Landscaping. He showed his officer a business card, little tractor in one corner, palm tree in the other, advertising everything from gutter cleaning to landscaping to cement washing. He built a whole marketing plan and even emphasized protecting customers' financial info. By the company's 3rd year, he reported grossing $44,000. His family could see how much he wanted to win. His aunt Cressida remembered him being determined focused, and hungry to make up for lost time. Her husband, Michael Shantz, said he admired the hustle and saw Clemens as a real entrepreneur, someone who was trying hard to turn his life into something better. By 2006, Maurice Clemmons was moving like a man trying to rewrite his whole story. He started buying up property in the Tacoma area, one house after another, like he was building his own little empire. His first purchase was a 3-bedroom spot in Parkland for about $245,000. Then, in early 2008, he grabbed a rundown place on 132nd Street for nearly $180,000, planning to rent it out to family. Only a few months later, he added a third home to the list, a $265,000 house where his sister LaTanya moved in right away. It looked like he was stacking wins left and right. That rundown house on 132nd didn't last long, though. A fire tore through it and left it destroyed. Instead of walking away, Clemens doubled down. He hired Beechwood Homes to build a whole new house from scratch, a $100,000 job that insurance mostly covered. Garrett Allward, the company's owner, said something that stuck with him. Nicole, not Maurice, seemed to be calling the shots. She was the one choosing carpet colors and countertop styles, running the project like she was the CEO of the whole operation. One of the subcontractors, Keith Bernasconi, remembered finishing the gutters and chatting with Clemens. Clemens invited Keith and his daughter, Melissa, to hang out in a little outbuilding on the property. When they walked in, the place looked like a mini lounge, brand new pool table, black leather couches, big screen TV. Melissa walked away thinking he must have been some kind of high roller. But while Clemens was building houses and collecting legit paychecks, something else was happening in the shadows. Evidence now shows he wasn't just working jobs. He was also out here committing crimes, slipping through cracks and staying one step ahead of getting caught. In the summer of 2004, when he traveled back to Little Rock to get married, it was Judge Marion Humphrey, the same judge who supported his clemency, who officiated the wedding. It felt like a fresh start. But 1 month later, an armed robbery went down in a Little Rock hotel room. The hotel logs and clues point to Clemens being the one behind it. Then, in 2005, postal records straight up connected him to packages of marijuana being shipped through the mail. He also started getting paranoid, installing a huge surveillance setup with cameras covering every angle of his property. Police found it suspicious. Clemens explained it like it was normal home security, but it was clear he was protecting more than just a front yard. Things got even more eyebrow-raising when police released a sketch of a man suspected of robbing 11 stores across the Puget Sound area. Auto parts shops, a sports pub, even a KFC. The sketch looked a whole lot like Clemens. So even though he had houses, jobs, and a family, the money behind the scenes wasn't adding up. And by 2008, the cracks were starting to show. His finances were beginning to fall apart, and the pressure was getting harder to hide. By early 2008, the stories about Maurice Clemmons' behavior took a sharp left turn. Before that, everything about his criminal life followed a familiar pattern: violence, fast money, and trying to build a name on the streets. But then something new showed up, something darker, something that had nothing to do with hustling and everything to do with the mind slipping out of reality. His own family started saying he wasn't just acting strange, he was breaking down. Clemens began telling people he was the Messiah. He said Nicole was Eve. He said he could fly. He believed he was chosen to save the world. And he didn't just keep this to himself. He started demanding things, like telling his whole family they needed to undress together at 4 a.m. on the dot, because he said that was God's number. What made it even more complicated was that some of the people around him actually believed him. A few started calling him Jesus. Nicole didn't go that far, but when he talked about being anointed or miracles happening around him. She backed him up and said it was real. Nicole lived deep in signs and symbols. She would stare at one of the surveillance cameras in their home because she swore she kept seeing red flames outlined in black. To her, that meant angels and demons were fighting. She obsessed over little details, random numbers, dates, symbols. Maurice's DOC number had 666 in it, and she saw that as a spiritual warning. She wouldn't even call a bail bond company because their phone number had 3 sixes in a row. She looked at the decimal point 66666 and said it meant something. Everything around her felt like a message from heaven or hell. On top of that, Nicole and Clemens shared this belief that evil was coming. Nicole told him about a pamphlet claiming the devil would microchip people. Clemens tried to shrug it off, saying that would only happen in Europe. Nicole hit back saying if the US could, it would, and even warned him to just wait until Obama was out of office. They were feeding each other's paranoia, building a world where everything felt like a spiritual battle. Clemens even tried to explain away his own cheating and wrongdoing by saying that if he was Jesus, he had to commit certain sins so he could understand other people's struggles. That was the level of delusion he was living in. That same summer, he took a cross-country drive to New York City to visit Bishop E. Bernard Jordan's Zoe Ministries. When he arrived, the man who brought him introduced him as Jesus Christ. Bishop Jordan shut that down immediately, saying they didn't tolerate foolishness and that if Clemens was struggling mentally, he needed real help. When Jordan asked Clemens why he came, Clemens said, "God told me to," and claimed the police had been knocking on his door and he'd been running ever since. He still donated around $1,500 to the church before returning home. Later, Jordan said they had a few phone calls after Clemens went back to Washington, and he begged Clemens to turn himself in and get mental health treatment, but Clemens refused, saying he didn't want to go to police, didn't want to turn himself in, and absolutely didn't want to go back to prison. Even his aunt Cressida noticed how deep the delusions had spread. When she called one summer, his cousin Eddie answered the phone and told her, "Maurice is your Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ." She said it felt like a cult forming right in the family. Eddie was buying every word Maurice said. Clemens eventually met with Timothy Bean, a registered counselor in Lakewood. Bean didn't see him as a monster. He saw a man who had snapped under pressure, someone who was terrified of getting sent back to prison after everything that went down earlier that May. Bean said Clemens was spiritually unraveling, trying to heal a wound that started when he was 16 and first thrown into the system. He tried prayer, meditation, exercising, and inconsistent counseling, but none of it held him steady for long. Then came May 9th, 2009. Clemens was with his friends, Davis and Pitts, when neighbors started calling 911. Clemens was outside throwing softball-sized rocks at cars and houses, shattering windows in at least 7 vehicles in 3 homes. When a deputy showed up, Davis and Pitts were outside. The deputy tried to get to Clemens, but Davis blocked him. A fight broke out. Pitts jumped in. Then Clemens rushed out and punched the deputy 3 times in the head. A second deputy arrived and immediately got attacked too. The chaos only stopped when that second deputy drew his gun. Davis and Pitts were arrested and later pleaded guilty. Clemens was charged with multiple felonies. But what happened next stunned everyone. He got out the very next day after posting a $40,000 bail without ever facing a judge. 2 days later, on May 11th, deputies were called back to Clemens' home for something far more horrifying. Clemens had come into the living room naked and told 2 girls, just 11 and 12 years old, to touch him. Out of fear, they obeyed. The 11-year-old escaped. The 12-year-old was taken into the bedroom until Nicole begged him to let her go. Nicole told deputies he had molested her daughter, but soon after she changed her story, refused to cooperate, and even said she'd take the rap when warned about lying to police. In July, Clemens was arrested again when he came to court trying to clear a bench warrant. He was charged with second-degree child rape, his 8th felony of the year, and Arkansas declared him a fugitive for violating parole. During the booking process, he tried to register his middle name as the Lord Jesus Christ. When the officer refused, Clemens exploded, screaming that the officer was a non-believer. He also warned that many white people will be killed if they didn't change, and called himself the Beast. At this point, Clemens was staring at 8 felony charges, a potential 3rd strike, and a bail set at $190,000, a level of pressure that pushed his already shaken mind even further over the edge. Now, while he was sitting in Pierce County Jail, Clemens already had a plan forming in his head, and he wanted his wife, Nicole Smith, to get it loud and clear. He wasn't yelling, he wasn't emotional, he was almost chillingly calm as he explained what he thought needed to happen next. He told her he needed a gun, and from that moment on, he'd keep one tucked in his front pocket everywhere he went. And if the police tried to stop him again, he said that would be the last time they ever spoke to him. In his mind, anyone who crossed him, especially law enforcement, wasn't walking away. Nicole barely reacted. She sounded tired, distracted, like someone who had heard these threats too many times to count. This October 4th call was only one of 28 conversations where Clemens repeated the same vows. No more handcuffs, no more judges, no more jail. The wild part, Clemens knew every phone call was recorded. He still talked openly about revenge, about a killing spree he viewed as payback for what he claimed was a lifetime of police abuse. Mixed between these dark ramblings were small bits of normal life, his time wasting away in solitary, her struggles at their South Tacoma home as foreclosure crept closer. Both of them were under pressure, but in very different ways. He feared dying in prison. She feared losing everything. By October 19th, his mood flipped entirely. Clemens sounded upbeat, almost joyful, as he sat in jail making plans to get out and settle scores. He rambled, hummed, even sang to Nicole. At one point, he broke into a line that said more than he realized. Nobody knows the trouble I see, never should have been let out of the penitentiary. He basically admitted he shouldn't have been released in the first place. That same day, 2 psychologists showed up at the jail to evaluate him. They asked if he thought about hurting others. He brushed it off with a vague answer, saying sometimes he did, especially when people acted like police couldn't lie. He talked about hallucinations, seeing people drinking blood and eating babies, but said those visions had stopped. Despite everything he said, the psychologist concluded that he had adequate insight, could think abstractly, and showed no signs of a mental disorder. Their final call was that he was competent to stand trial. By November 2009, the marriage between Clemens and Nicole was falling apart fast. She tried to regain control by asking for a power of attorney so she could manage their finances, but he shut that down immediately. When she visited him in person, he told her the Bible said a woman had to obey her husband. She pushed back, asking what happened to her opinion. He told her she didn't have one. For Nicole, that was the breaking point. She told him she didn't even recognize him anymore. Nicole had bailed him out twice earlier that year, but after watching him get arrested yet again, she refused to do it a 3rd time. She was done believing his promises and done carrying his chaos. So Clemens moved on to his backup plan. He told Davis, Hinton, and a few others to come up with the $9,500 needed for bond. They scrambled, pulled it together, and on November 23rd, he walked out of jail once again, free, angry, and determined to follow through on everything he'd been talking about. Right after Clemens walked out of jail, he was supposed to check in with his community corrections officer within 24 hours. That was the rule. That was the deal. But he didn't show up, didn't call, didn't do anything. And the most alarming part, Nothing happened, no follow-up, no consequences. He just slipped right through the cracks like nobody was paying attention. Not even a week later, on Thanksgiving Day 2009, he was at his aunt's house surrounded by family. But instead of enjoying the holiday, he was venting loudly about his legal problems in Pierce County. Then he took it far beyond complaining. He told people in that room exactly what he planned to do. He said he was going to murder police officers and even school children. To prove he was serious, he pulled out a gun and showed it off. Then he told them he had 2 more, one in the car, one back at home. He explained the plan like he'd rehearsed it, cut off his court-ordered ankle monitor, let the alarm go off, and wait. When officers showed up to check on him, he said he would meet them at the door with knock, 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 boom. One of the people there was Darkus Allen, a man who had served time with Clemens in Arkansas and stayed close with him after release. And later that same Thanksgiving Day, Clemens did exactly what he said he was going to do. He cut off that ankle monitor. By November 28th, things were escalating fast. Clemens showed off 2 handguns to Eddie and Douglas Davis. He told them straight up he planned to use those guns on police officers. His half-brother, Ricky Hinton, witnessed the whole thing. While he flashed the weapons, he danced around the room and said he was Lucifer. He bragged that he'd already tried to carry out the attack twice. First time the police station was closed. Second time, he got a flat tire. He even floated the idea of shooting up a busy intersection or a school. On the morning of November 29th, Clemens rolled up to Darkus Allen's place in a white pickup truck. Allen got behind the wheel, and they cruised past the Force of Coffee co-ops in Lakewood. That's when they spotted several police patrol cars in the parking lot. Allen circled the area and parked nearby. Witnesses later said Clemens was seen at a nearby car wash pretending to wash the truck, but he never turned the hose on, just watching, waiting. Around 8 a.m., Clemens walked into the coffee shop. 4 Lakewood police officers were sitting at their tables, working on their laptops before their shifts. Clemens didn't say a word. He opened fire immediately with a Glock 17 while carrying a .38 revolver as backup. Investigators later said the attack was targeted and deliberate. He didn't shoot any customers. He didn't threaten the baristas. He went straight for the officers. The victims were 4 veteran officers. Mark Renninger, shot in the head. Ronald Owens, shot in the neck. Tina Griswold, shot in the head. Greg Richards, shot in the head, yet somehow still fighting back. Despite being mortally wounded, Officer Richards wrestled with Clemens near the doorway. In those final seconds, Richards managed to fire a round that struck Clemens in the lower back. Moments later, Richards collapsed and died from his injuries. As Clemens escaped, he stole Officer Richards' Glock pistols and ran back to the truck. Allen drove him away. Later that same day, everything shifted. Authorities confirmed the name they were looking for, Maurice Clemmons. At first, he was just labeled a person of interest. That title didn't last long. Within hours, he was officially the prime suspect in the killings. Police had no motive, none. And when Detective Ed Troyer from the Pierce County Sheriff's Office spoke to the public, he made it clear they weren't expecting a motive that even made sense. This case looked senseless from every angle. At first, investigators thought Clemens might have died from the gunshot Officer Richards fired during the struggle, but he hadn't. Instead, he limped back home and told a woman named Hinton that the police had shot him. Allegedly, Hinton gave her car keys to Eddie and Douglas Davis so they could get Clemens out of here. While they were driving him around, Clemens told the Davis brothers he had taken care of his business. They eventually dropped him off with more friends who patched up his wounds as best they could. A few hours later, police got a tip that Clemens might be hiding out in Seattle. They pulled over a white car they believed carried him earlier. The driver admitted Clemens was her friend and told officers she had driven him to Seattle after he confessed outright that he had killed police officers. Meanwhile, witnesses from the coffee shop positively identified Clemens' photo as the shooter. That sealed it. One of the biggest manhunts in Pacific Northwest history was officially underway. To tighten the net, police surrounded the homes of Clemens' friends and relatives. They weren't just looking for him, they were figuring out who was helping him stay hidden. While all this was happening, Clemens called his aunt Cressida in the Leshy neighborhood. He told her he was wounded and wanted to come to her place. This wasn't some distant relative. Cressida had babysat him when she was only 13. She and her husband, Michael Shantz, had always tried to support him. They didn't see him as a monster. They thought he was struggling mentally and emotionally, especially in the months before the shooting. But when Clemens told Cressida he wasn't going down and planned to kill more people, everything changed. The couple had to push their history aside and think about the safety of others. Shantz later said their biggest fear was how many more people might die if they didn't act. They told Clemens not to come and immediately contacted the police. Early on November 30th, officers surrounded a house where they believed Clemens was hiding. For 11 long hours, they tried everything, calling him out, deploying robots, throwing in flashbangs. When they finally entered, he was nowhere inside. The search expanded rapidly. Officers swept parks, neighborhoods, and campuses. They recovered his pickup truck, blood still inside, and one of his guns. Still, Clemens managed to stay ahead of them. Leads poured in by the thousands. Some of those calls were fake. People helping Clemens deliberately fed misinformation to slow the police down. Meanwhile, Clemens was out there trying to treat his gunshot wound with nothing but gauze and duct tape while dodging one of the largest police hunts in the region's history. Then came December 1st in the dead of night. Officer Benjamin Kelly was on routine patrol in South Seattle when he spotted a stolen car sitting with the hood up and engine running. He pulled over to check it out. As he sat in his cruiser writing paperwork, he felt movement behind him. A large man with a mole on his cheek walked toward him. Kelly instantly recognized him as Clemens. The mug shot, the news bulletins, everything matched. Kelly jumped out, ordered him to show his hands, but Clemens kept moving. Kelly fired several rounds, hitting him twice. Even wounded, Clemens tried to run toward a nearby house, disappearing behind a thick wall of shrubs. Kelly tried repeatedly to call for backup, but his radio wasn't cooperating. 4 attempts later, it finally connected. While waiting, shotgun ready, he searched the area. Clemens was lying face down, barely breathing. Kelly could tell the gunshots were critical. Within minutes, Clemens was dead, bringing 2 days of fear and chaos to an end.